Hi, welcome to the Ambient iPad. Let's make some music. This is Jam 65. I'm going to continue in the same vein that I've done in the last couple of jams. I guess this is turning into a series where I take a sound or two from the Mellotron that they sound cool in isolation, but it can be hard to find a place to put them in a musical setting. I'm using SpaceFields, which is SpaceFields, which is kind of a reverb delay app. Whatever sound you put in it ends up being this big, huge, expansive soundscape. So I've been using that in the jams as well. So for this jam is going to be based around on the Mellotron M400. It's called Tubular Bells. It actually has a bunch of different cymbals and tubular bells as well. So I'll start off the jam with the that sound going through SpaceFields. Then a couple of other M400 sounds. We've got the 8-voice choir, English horn, 3 violins B, and 2 brass. I also am using a Moog 15 for a couple of different synth lines, and I'll walk through that. The signal chain is the Mellotron M4000D Mini. Its master mono analog output goes into a Focusrite Scarlett 18i8 interface, which communicates back and forth with the iPad Pro through a USB-C hub that also lets me power the iPad Pro at the same time. Doing this jam in apeMatrix. I have a lot of it set up already because there's a lot here and I really don't want to take all the time just to kind of go through and set it up. So it's also very similar to the previous jam. But first, let's start with listening to what Tubular Bells sounds like. And so I'll play through some of the cymbals and all the other stuff in this patch. So you do get the tubular bells up there and then a bunch of different cymbals in the lower half of the keyboard. I've got a bunch of different effects on, that's why you're hearing the delay. The other sounds we're going to walk through, and I'm just going to keep all this on, is the ones that I'm going to use over that. So we've got the 8-voice choir. These are all from the M400. I've also got English horn. Also known as the cor anglaise, and that is very similar to the oboe. It's a double reed instrument. And then we've got 2 brass, which is turning into one of my favorite Mellotron sounds. There's something about this sound. Even though it's a recording of real horns, 2 of them, to me it sounds more like synthesized horns, and that's probably the combination of the tones between the 2 and the fact that when you get 2 players together, they're not playing the exact same pitches. It might be even microscopically off will alter the sound. So those are essentially the Mellotron sounds. The other things I've got here, so close the MixBox too soon. So on MixBox, I've got my typical setup here. I'm not going to walk through it again. I do turn some things on and off as I'm going along. I'm using, for drums, it's Ruismaker FM. Triggering that is Rozeta Rhythm, and I'll play through all these shortly. Then we also have a Moog Model 15, which is the kind of classic modular, and this is a arpeggiated setting I created patch, but it's actually going to be triggered by Rozeta particles, so it adds a lot of randomness to it. I've picked the key. It's interesting, it's D minor, but I'm not really playing D minor, and there's one point where that might be a little dissonant, but that's the way it goes. And then I've got another Model 15 patch that I have the arpeggiator set up, and actually I use it on the keyboard. I use the on-screen keyboard because I'm only playing a few notes and they're held So I'll walk through that as well. Finally, from an effects perspective, I've got the new AudioKit Reverb that I've talked about last time. Very simple, very straightforward, but great. I have that set for the drums and for both of the Moogs. I also have Spatializer on another matrix, if I can get over there, and I'm sending everything through that too, bus A. Finally, for the Model 15 patch where I'm playing the on-screen keyboard, I'm running that through Bleass's Motion FX, and I'm using that to essentially, it's almost like an LFO going through the cutoff. So that's the setup. One thing let me do here, I played through the sounds. Let's hear what the Moog and Ruismaker sound like. So let's start with Ruismaker. Let me mute Model 15. So this is the drum patch. A lot of reverb, but once I add the Moogs, that reverb kind of disappears. So here's Moog 1. And this is triggered by particles. So this is actually an arpeggiated, actually, yeah, it's called thin wire arpeggiator. So this is just a patch on the Moog, but it's being triggered by particles. And I've got particles going pretty fast here. So it starts the arp, but it never finishes for each note because it's changing so quickly. And then let's add in the Model 15 here. Again, I'm putting that on hold. I think I need to get down here. Ah, we're on mute. Okay, it all kind of catches up with each other, even though the drums are on the beat, but the snare is not hitting in typically where you think it is. The snare's hitting on the offbeat. Cool thing about the Moog, the Model 15, and this works on the on-screen keyboard, is you can change the cutoff by just going up the key. So, okay, I'm just not going to go up that high, but you can see, or hear, and see as I'm going up. Well, you can't see because on the screenshot up there, it's just going to show the key depressed. But I'm moving my finger up and down the key. So I'll set that pretty much in an area like that. However, the Bleass Motion FX is also opening and closing the cutoff, but at a much slower rate. And actually you can see that going. So I've got this, we're at 82 BPM for the tempo, and this is synced to it. So it's quarter notes, so it's slowly opening it up. And that's a patch I created on the Bleass. All right, let's turn that off. Let's turn this off. And let me just quickly run through what I'm thinking of doing. We'll start off with the Tubular Bells through. I want to turn some of this stuff off. Put the phaser on just to make it sound cool. So let's start with SpaceFields, and then I'll just quickly do some other stuff over it that I'm going to do, and then we'll get into the jam. So here we go, M400, Tubular Bells, through SpaceFields, and a bunch of other effects. Okay, so SpaceFields records essentially what I just played as a loop, and it will just send those through a variety of delays and bandpass filters and reverb, and it just does magic. So you can actually record this and then cut off that initial input of the notes, and I could do that too, just edit it out, and then you would just start with the soundscape. But that's not what we did here. So let me turn that off. So that would go in the background. Then I'll probably do some stuff over it. Tiggy, my cat's back. It's funny. Months and months of videos, just my black cat Boo. All of a sudden, the last couple of videos, another cat's on the scene. There's actually one more. We've got 3 here. So, phaser. Let's turn on the plate reverb. So I'll do some the choir over this. Whoops, or Tubular Bells first. Anyways, then the choir. Something like that. And then we'll probably start the sequence. We'll have Ruismaker not go. Excellent, it got quiet for a second here. So that's one of the Moogs. Then I would add in that. I'm not going to bother changing the effects, but then do the English horn over this. Oops. Probably want to lower the SpaceFields a little so it doesn't overpower everything, but still have it go on the background. Then we'll add the Moog Model D, like we did before. Something like that. And then I would just do 2 brass over that at this point. So something like that, and actually I like that. I work on that as a melody line. I want to turn everything back on, because then at this point, what I'll do is go 3 Violins B and kind of bring that in. You hear the phaser on there. And then maybe just start fading things out. So fade out Ruismaker, mute that. Probably add SpaceFields back in, back up to 0, or as close to 0 as we can get. All right, that's close enough. And then just start lowering the volume of both Moogs while I'm doing stuff. You can see where this is going. Just fade out the rhythm parts, end up with the soundscape. That just end naturally, and then fade SpaceFields out. Now, luckily, it came around to that point in the loop where it's kind of quiet, just easily makes it go down. What I'm going to do now is I actually want to work on that. So turn the camera off, reposition everything, and record the jam, and then I'll come back. I'm having fun taking sounds that in isolation are kind of cool, but it's hard to find a musical application for them. I've done 3 of those videos so far. There's a couple of more sounds on here. One is it's like half harpsichord, half a horn, and it doesn't sound like a harpsichord. But it's another one of those, how you going to use that. And then actually there's a couple of more sound, one more sound I'll probably use. I'm not sure which one it is, which model of the Mellotron, but it's an acoustic guitar. And it's funny because these are recordings of real instruments, right? Synths. You can always say, oh, it's not, kind of sounds like something, but it's a synth. This is actual recordings of somebody playing an instrument, and sometimes you're like, really? Is that what it's supposed to be? I figure I'll just go through this series, and a couple of more of those sounds I think will sound pretty cool. Because going through SpaceFields, I mean, to be fair, I'm using those sounds and putting them through SpaceFields. I could put anything through SpaceFields, and you just get this huge kind of loopy, expansive soundscape, and then it's just building things over that. So again, you know, this one's a little more composed. I'll definitely try to do a blank slate one, but the jam's like 12 minutes long, and I'm really trying not to go over 20 minutes with these videos, even though it's hard. I do appreciate people watching them. So, and thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.